Start churning butter and put on your church shoes, little sister, because we're about to blast off. Today we're going to talk about Ralph Breaks the Internet. I watched this movie on a plane ride back from Japan after a mission trip, and I was surprised because I cried 4 times. I wasn't expecting that to happen. I love how the villain in this movie was Ralph's own insecurity and how that kept coming up as a problem and it was like sabotaging his relationship with his friend. And I loved how the victory in this movie was him overcoming his insecurity by releasing his best friend in trust away from his control. Like letting her choose what she wants in spite of what he demanded from her in order for her to be free in the relationship. It was such a beautiful, victorious climax. I was like, this is awesome. I love this. So you guys, I'm going to get into some of the things that happened in this. I loved this movie. The themes and the messages throughout were so cool. There was a quote that I had to write down because I was like, oh, that's really good. It's more like psychology and, humanism, but there's still wisdom in it and it's super helpful. Vanellope says this to Ralph: needy, clingy, self-destructive behavior can destroy friendships. And I was like, whoa, that's a loaded line, and I had to rewind it like 9 times to get it. I just wanted to make sure I got it verbatim. I love that it was identifying that people being clingy and like needy and holding on to stuff and like codependent in that stuff actually destroys friendships. I think a lot of times there's false compassion where people give space to and allow the other person to be clingy or needy because they think it's nice to like be generous and give to them in that space. But actually the thing driving that other person is destructive in nature. And so they might be disadvantaged because they're the one who's needy, but it actually sucks the life out of the person they're trying to attach to. And it's not appropriate to let them just continue to do that, right? So I love that that was being called out in this movie. I see it as a huge problem in relationships in general. And so if we can be more intentional and aware of those dynamics, we can become a lot more in control of ourselves to not bring that to the table or let it happen to us. Loved it. And then there's also another strong theme in this movie where we want to release our friends to pursue their dreams, even if their dream has nothing to do with what ours is, like what we want to have in our life. We see a lot of this happening with, especially young people hitting a certain point in life where they go and pursue their career or their dream or the adventure that's before them or whatever, and their family wants them to go get it out of their system and then come back. Not everyone obviously, but there's a common narrative where it's come back and work in our hometown and be with the family and stick around and stay here. And I'm not saying that's wrong or bad, but imposing that on someone else instead of actually supporting their dreams. If they choose to come back, we can celebrate it, but if they choose not to, we can celebrate that too. That's destructive to that person. We want to set them up for success and give them freedom to pursue what's in their heart. So in the family dynamic, but also with our friends. We've got people that we've built life with, we've connected to, we've been intimate with, we're vulnerable toward, and then all of a sudden they choose to leave. That's devastating, it's painful, we've got abandonment issues, right? That's a thing, I get it. I've experienced that. But if we're gonna let freedom and truth and trust reign in our lives, we need to release the people around us, no matter how important they are to us, to pursue what's in their heart and be true to that voice inside them that's guiding them to what's theirs, and let them go pursue that in spite of how it's going to cost us or how we're going to be affected. We want the people in our lives, especially the ones that we care about and are close to experience that freedom from our choices in their life. Another theme that I saw in this movie that I really enjoyed was there was offense and anger and resentment and bitterness in the friendship between Vanellope and Ralph, and they're fighting through it for a few scenes. And I love seeing how, though friends can make choices or they can have behaviors that hurt our feelings, that make us feel betrayed or whatever, if that's contrasted with this vast backdrop of choices where they had sacrificed and chosen you and preferred you in friendship, there's a space in that where we can actually let that stuff advocate for them in our lives and not just get hung up on the one thing or the 2 things or the 9 things they did that hurt your feelings, you know what I mean? Or maybe there's a pattern where they continue to do this one destructive thing that's not awesome. I'm not saying we make space for that or we accept it, but we don't just necessarily throw out the relationship just because there's this one thing that hits us the wrong way, when they've brought all this other stuff that is beautiful and strong and right and good to the friendship. And so I love how there was a voice in the movie that someone came and was like, hey, maybe he did this stuff to you, maybe this happened, and yeah, that wasn't fair, that wasn't appropriate. But also look at everything else that he's done. Look at the sacrifices that he's made. Look at the ways that he's chosen you and preferred you and served you and blah, blah, blah. And that's all still true. And so often those clingy, needy people might have that vampiric suck to them where they're just trying to get the life out of you to fill some empty, like, endless hole in their own life. They also tend to demonstrate, like, consistency and faithfulness and loyalty, and they show up and they help and they contribute. And, like, that doesn't get thrown out just because they've got this clingy issue, you know what I mean? Those things actually register or should, and they matter. And so I love the idea of, even if we are in a place of offense and someone has violated us or hurt us or done something that, like, make us feel unsafe in the relationship, that we can actually bring to our own remembrance and our own attention and advocate on their behalf the things that they did do that were beautiful and right and good, things they do contribute that are adding life to us. We want to see that too as we're navigating what do we do with this hurt and this pain. And so that was pronounced and demonstrated in this movie, which I love. It just felt so emotionally mature and responsible. And then I also just loved the fact that these characters, they had a couple moments. I remember Vanellope jumped on a car with Ralph and they're like flying toward the bad guy. They're on their way to go fight the big bad and they're just having this like side conversation. And basically she's like, no, I'm not happy with you. I don't like that happened, but I love you and blah, blah, blah. I love that she got to express discomfort or something she didn't like, something she's not happy about, and still be in connection with him. A lot of people I found can't handle that dynamic. If there's anything about them that someone in the relationship doesn't like, they can't move forward. They can't hang. There's this big rift, this wall, like they're disconnected. And I'm like, I don't know if that's true. I don't know if it has to be that way. I love that Vanellope had the freedom and the confidence to express, I didn't like it, Ralph. What you did sucked. It hurt me. I'm not okay with it. But I love you, and I'm choosing you anyway, and blah, blah, blah. I don't like the idea of her sitting on that and building a defense or holding it against him or whatever, but I love that she was honest and able to express that in where she was at and that they could still move forward together. And so I love, though, that we had a few moments like that between them on screen, like in a kid's movie, them having powerful, confronting conversations about their relationship. I love kids getting to see it's an option on the menu that they could actually consider, we can talk about this. I don't have to just like axe you out of my life. Most people growing up, their solution to there being a rift or a disconnect or a hurt in friendship is to just completely block that person out of their life and move on. Be hurt and then be offended and cut them out. And that's not a solution. So I love that we get to, in the kids movie, demonstrate there's actually some other options here. You can still be hurt and mad and move toward them. And that person can be understanding. We can not punish each other and accuse each other and just keep each other locked in condemnation. We could actually move toward each other in the presence of pain. Love it. I am such a fan of this movie. I thought they did such a great job exploring like complex relational dynamics in a fun and simple way, but still being very clear about what is and isn't happening and them getting to be victorious together in it. It was a beautiful display of friendship and releasing someone to freedom and trust and having it be a beautiful, positive thing as they went through the journey. Loved it. Ralph Breaks the Internet. Well done, guys. I would highly recommend this movie. And remember, guys, when you're watching a movie, you're never alone. Like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell button, and also throw some thoughts in the comments below. I know this stuff can get kind of painful or hairy for people. I'd love to know your thoughts on this. What are your thoughts on moving towards someone while you're mad?